Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us again for the annual Africa Fashion Business Review. With me is Dr. Erica DeGriff, the co-director of Africa Fashion Research Institute. We're so delighted to have you here. But first of all, I'd just like to share with people that Africa Fashion Business Summit, you know, began majorly as a need to present the conversation of the business of fashion in Africa, such that we can create a melting point or a platform where all players in the industry, can meet and prefer solutions to the success of doing business in Africa, fashion business in Africa. So we do this by recognizing the challenges. We talk about the challenges that fashion entrepreneurs in Africa, are faced with every day, and we seek to prefer solutions through our global network. We're also particular about employing technology to support African fashion ecosystem, and we are particular about identifying innovative fashion startups that need investors, and are in need of key financial partners. Finally, we are also key on the conversation and practice of sustainability in Africa's fashion value chain. And, what better way to do this than to keep the conversation ongoing? One of the ways we're doing this is to, you know, create an annual review of the business of fashion across Africa, where we talk about, the challenges in the course of the year in focus. We talk about the growth, we talk about opportunities, we talk about the successes and the new developments that is ongoing in the continent. So for this review, we'll be focusing on collaboration, a fashion community, and most importantly, education, which is a big deal for African fashion enthusiasts. So Dr. Erica, thank you for joining us. Would like you to introduce yourself briefly to the audience and tell us a little bit about Africa Fashion Research Institute.
Mm. Thank you so much, Damilola, and thank you for the audience for joining us. I'd like to acknowledge the land that I'm speaking from. So I'm speaking from South Africa. I'd like to acknowledge the ancestors of this land and the future generations that come to live on this land, that we consider our actions today for their shared futures. Thank you so much for the invitation for participating in this really important conversation. So my name is Erica de Kruijff. I am co-founder of the African Fashion Research Institute, together with my partner, Lisiba Mabitsela. We've co-founded the African Fashion Research Institute in 2019. So it's really just a baby still. But it really came out of a real need to think how, if anybody is really interested in fashion from the continent, how do we start to collate and come together as a unified narrative around our histories? African fashion histories are so often ignored in fashion textbooks, in fashion exhibitions, in fashion histories. So how do we create one single space where we can start to collate this kind of information? But it's not just the histories, it's also about contemporary narrative. So it's really about trying to open up platforms, developing far more accessible spaces for information around contemporary, historical, and hopefully future-oriented fashion from this continent. So in a nutshell, we are primarily a digital platform. So our website and our Instagram handle is AfriDigital. So at the moment we're really building community in that way. So maybe just as I kind of go along, we can expand on the ways in which we've worked. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm really glad to hear that, because we are moving to an era where Africa is going to be a key player in solving the problem of global fashion, which is fast fashion. And having an organization like yours would help preserve the identity of Africa, really, because in Africa, we are majorly oral tradition centric, right? We pass down knowledge orally, and we rarely have documents and books and memoirs and biographies and things like that. And there's a huge need for that. And, you know, I think that you playing a major role, even digitally, because digital is the future. Digitally makes it accessible for a lot of fashion players in Africa. So I think it's a great one. It's a really great one. So I would like to know how are there projects you worked on recently?
Yes, so I think the digital does a number of things. It becomes a single place where information can be stored quite
Right,
successfully, um, but it also becomes accessible across multiple platforms. So whether it's places like social media, like this kind of conversation, or whether it's websites, or whether it's through journals and writing, and then through digital exhibitions. So our first project that we did as the African Fashion Research Institute. Cynthia's joining us.
Hi, Dr. DeGrove. Can you give us a minute? Hi, Cynthia. It's great to have
Hi,
you here.
thank
I
you.
guess it took you a minute to figure this out. We hope it
Yeah,
was not so much of a bother.
no, it's all right. We are
Okay.
learning.
Yeah, we are, because digital is the future. We all have to find our spot right there in the digital
Hmm.
space. Welcome and thank you for joining us. So, Dr. Erica has introduced herself. She's the co-director of Africa Fashion Research Institute. On Instagram, you'll find them at Afri Digital, right? And would like you to introduce yourself as well, Cynthia, so that Dr. Erica can, be conversant with you.
I'm Cynthia Shiming. I'm a fashion designer, clothing technologist. I'm also a recipient of the laureate from UNESCO for fashion for design. And at the moment, one of my artwork is in the Humboldt Forums. Can you hear me?
Yes, clearly we can.
In Germany, which will be a permanent art exhibition, but it's all also based on fashion with linked a little bit with the genocide, our history. And I'm a retired lecturer from the University of Namibia and College of the Arts.
Fantastic. So I think that's just a very brief way of introducing yourself, Cynthia. However, we'll just take it right on. I asked Dr. Erica a question, like what are the projects that um, Afri Digital, what projects are they working on at the moment? And that's when you joined us. So I would
Hmm.
like to give her the room to complete what she was saying, and then we take it
Yes.
on from there. All right, Dr.
Yeah.
Erica, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Cynthia, for your introduction. I think it's quite an interesting place to kind of overlap. So I said we launched the African Fashion Research Institute in 2019, and we launched it with possibly the first digital fashion exhibition from the continent. And it was a digitization of an exhibition that was happening in London. So,
Hmm.
so the exhibition didn't happen in South Africa, but the exhibition happened in London. But there were three African designers whose work was featured in that exhibition. And so,
Right.
Damilola, just what you're saying, it's so incredibly important for African creatives and African designers and African researchers to have access to this information. And unless one would go to London, one would never see these exhibitions, or one would never
Right.
see this work. Even
Right.
fellow designers and fellow researchers and fellow creatives of the designers that were featured. So it was Tebe Magugu, it was
Yeah.
Ami Doshiswa from Kenya, and it was Cedric Miziro from Rwanda. So their
Hmm.
work featured in this exhibition in London, and the reality is that so often work from this continent is featured internationally, and the continent never sees it, the continent never shares it. So we we digitize the exhibition to return the exhibition back to the continent.
Okay.
And
Right.
then in the digitization, what we did is we layered it with a whole lot of dialogue that was, you know, arguably decolonial. So we could insert African voice back into the exhibition to speak over the curation of a British-based exhibition. So it really is, how does the digital allow for intervention as well as creating access? So this was the International Fashion Showcase exhibition that is accessible on our website, and
Right.
anybody can actually journey through the entire exhibition from any place globally. So a really exciting project where the digital allows for a very different kind of engagement and dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
I mean, I
okay,
just want
Cynthia.
I'm actually glad that Dr. Erica referred to exhibition and fashion, because that's something very new. In the past, it was always the runway and the runway,
Runway,
and
right.
yeah, and I have learned, because I don't do runways anymore. I do exhibitions, because when you do exhibitions, more people see your creations and in their own time, and it is not a rush thing, because with a fashion show it's 2 minutes and
Right.
nobody can even remember it
They get
anymore.
to interact with you, ask questions, want to know the concept behind the creation.
Yeah,
True.
yes.
I totally
And
agree.
sometimes with my last exhibition here in Namibia, I even invited students, and we had like workshops in the um, gallery, which is a good thing.
Right. Okay. So this will bring me to the first question, right? About Africa, right? So since COVID-19, so much has happened globally. Everybody was, caught unawares, and a lot of changes have occurred globally in the fashion industry. But what would you say about Africa post COVID-19 when you look at the fashion industry? It seems like the lockdown period, the pandemic, gave us a reason to sit back and rethink a lot of things. And I'd like to hear your take on that. What are the major changes that you've witnessed in Africa fashion industry post COVID-19?
Mm.
You know, COVID
Cynthia, would
has
you like
taught,
to start?
for
Mm.
instance,
Okay,
that, sorry, it's me. Uh, has taught us, for instance, that we have to look at things in different ways now. The way that we are, because access to material is not that easy anymore. So we
easy
will
and
have to reproduce our own. We have to think about sustainable fabrics and sustainable design, and then and we have to think producing in Africa for Africans. We have to look
right,
at our local markets, because even if we design to for instance sell overseas, which is becoming very expensive, we have to look at our own market first. We have to look at the African market at large.
Okay. Should I just expand on that a little bit? And I think perhaps maybe what Cynthia, what you're also referring to is things like supply chains, the interruption of those supply chains. But I think also the idea that there was a pause and a kind of moment to reflect. And
exactly.
Yeah.
I think there's a Leonard Cohen song that speaks about there's a crack and that's how the light gets in. So
Yes.
I
Right,
think
Yes.
the pandemic, I think the pandemic allowed for a certain kinds of cracking of a fashion
Mhm.
system, and particularly I think a global fashion system. So some of my other work is with the Research Collective for Decoloniality and Fashion. So it really
Mhm.
is how does this system of fashion that is so long denied other kinds of voices and other
mm,
kinds of aesthetics and other kinds of practices. And, and African fashion suffered enormously,
I
as
did.
did Asian
Truly.
fashion and other indigenous fashions. And
Yeah.
and this opportunity to push back and to rewrite the script from an African
You're right.
perspective.
That's the word. Right.
Yes.
So
And so
okay.
exhibitions are really important, but I think publications are also important, and
Right.
competitions are important, and platforms like these. I think if anything, the pandemic has opened up an intra-African or pan-African dialogue,
Right.
which 2019, we were having dialogues
Existent. Right.
externally, but not
With each
internally
other, not
across
internally.
with each other. Mm.
Exactly.
So
Fantastic.
I would say, yeah.
So I
Yeah,
take the
everything.
word. Okay,
Yeah,
Cynthia,
also.
you can go on.
No,
You
I
can go
think
on, Cynthia.
we were divided in sectors. Africa, for instance, if you look at Southern Africa, the way we look at fashion is totally different from the Western Africa. We
Right,
are more
right,
Western orientated when it comes to design. We don't
right,
really have that pride in our culture anymore. And this is why working in the museum in Berlin with all our artifacts was for me a great experience. And it's a way of bringing back what we have learned there and translate it into our fashion and jewelry in Southern Africa.
right. So I take two keywords you would have mentioned. Dr. Erica says rewrite. So we are at that important moment, right, in the history of Africa where the the African fashion, there's like a rewriting. We're writing the story all over again. There's a change in narrative, right? So we are
Yes,
now telling our own story. The
yes.
norm is to have people in diaspora, to have the Western world telling the African story. But now
Mm-hmm.
Africans are telling their story, and they're having the conversations with each other, and they are protecting and preserving the conversation, which is the exhibition, the publications. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that truly that is here to stay. We're no longer just about the glamour. We're now interested in intellectual aspect of
Yes.
fashion. I would like to ask, would you say that this brings me to education? Would you say that this would influence fashion education in Africa? When I say fashion education, I mean, the process of learning the skill and the heart of designing, right, and the business of it. Would you think that this reemergence would influence the curriculum and influence the conversations?
My thing is making something funny here.
I think we might just have lost
Yeah,
Cynthia. She's coming
yeah.
back. Yes.
I'm
Okay,
back.
she's back now.
Let me just, yeah. Let me
Hi,
just
Cynthia. Welcome.
respond to that question. I think it's really an important one and flows quite directly from this idea of disruption. And I think for a very long time, academic institutions and fashion education institutions especially followed a very singular method of how to teach fashion, and that how
Right,
to teach fashion was an imported and therefore colonial method of
right,
Mm-hmm.
Paris and London, etc., are the center of the fashion um, system, and everything else extends from that periphery. And
right,
I think the pandemic, the need to rewrite, the need to rethink, the need to revalue. So it's really about shifting values, and I think sustainability and climate change voices that are happening internationally are
right,
starting to crumble the kind of arrogant dominance of that single Western fashion system,
right, right,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're able to engage and 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 even we are being heard, we're being listened to very differently because we have methods of sustainable fashion practices on this continent that are way ahead of what is being followed elsewhere in the
It's
world.
funny. It's funny you say that we have methods of sustainable fashion that, in quotes, were regarded as archaic at some point. They were regarded as
Mm-hmm.
slow. They were regarded as African, backward, and
Yeah.
stagnant, unrefined. I could go on and on. But now, Africa seems to be that continent that everyone is looking to for the solution, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you are very correct. Cynthia, what do you have to say to what Dr. Erica has said
No,
now?
I agree with if we have to change the curriculum of the history of fashion, for instance, because what we are teaching at the institution is the European history. If you look at the timeline, it's all European. We touch
Right,
Egypt a little bit, but then when we talk about Egypt, it was Cleopatra was wearing. But we
right,
never go back to Bathsheba from Ethiopia or all
right.
the queens that we had in Africa. That is not discussed. And what people wore before we actually
We're
uh, uh,
colonized.
were colonized and wear what we were forced to wear today. And those
Right.
are some of the things that must be taught in the history of fashion, especially in Africa.
So what you're saying, from what you've both said, is that we need to decolonize African fashion education. We need to
Exactly.
be 100% African, right? Let the
Yes.
curriculum be 100% or, as much as possible African,
Mhm.
Afrocentric. The
Yes.
methods, the history, the culture, let it all be African. You're very right. I did, attend a fashion course, a short course in Lagos, Nigeria, and the bulk of the curriculum were foreign, right? Nothing from my country.
Hmm.
Even the popular fashion designers that we were asked to research on and read on, we're talking about the great designers. Versace, you're asked to go and read on Giorgio Armani. Nobody's
Hmm.
asking you to read about Folashade, you know,
Hmm.
from Nigeria. Nobody's asking you to read about iconic African designers, right?
Hmm.
And that is a huge problem in the fashion education. And truly, even the craftsmanship is
Yeah.
rarely taught in this curriculum. The culture of passing it down and whatnot. So this will bring me to the next question, which is: do you think that the digital space would help hasten this decolonization? Because now everybody is digital, right? Do you think
Yeah.
that the digital space, like Erika said, publication is important? Cynthia said exhibitions are important. What role do you think the digital solutions will play in quickening this decolonization?
Oh, you see, it will be great if we can have all schools, all schools are equipped with digital equipment, for instance, and this is our biggest problem. Um, so I don't know whether at the moment, especially after COVID, whether institutes or governments have the money to really furnish the fashion design schools to the extent that we can do things digitally. And then the other thing is trying to manufacture our own fabrics, for instance, because at the moment we are also flooded with fabrics from China. They even copy
Right.
our African designs and then bring it
Prints, the patterns.
in a the patterns in a not even
Cheaper form.
100% altered. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know. Those are still bridges that we have to cross and things, evils that we have to get out of the way first.
Dr. Erica, what do you say?
Mm. Thank you, Cynthia. I think they're very, very important and sort of practical challenges and economic challenges. I think what the digital has done, and we just need to look at things like Black Lives Matter, or
Right. Who
even
made your
even
clothes?
with
Yeah.
and and the fashion revolution, and even moments like Kanye West or Andre
Right.
Talley's
Yeah.
passing. There's a kind
Yeah.
of mobilization that happens through the digital, and it's through social media, but
Hmm.
it's WhatsApp, it's Instagram, it's Facebook. So these kinds of community, and it might be leading to our next question, but these kinds of community, these kind of fashion communities that gather around a different pulse, or gather around a different purpose,
Hmm.
are incredibly powerful. And the digital has kind of exploded things like boundaries and
Right.
borders,
Yeah.
um,
Right.
and And there's a great opportunity in that for even students who not necessarily the institution has the digital capacities, but students and individuals themselves have got WhatsApp or Instagram, and they're able to engage in very, very different kinds of conversations internationally and pan-Africanly. So I think the kind of smallness of that, the accessibility of that, I think is a very, very, very powerful tool in the digital space.
Yeah.
So the digital space is definitely going to quicken, this process for Africa, because
Yeah.
Africans across different countries in the continent are interacting with one another. They are communicating with one another, and that will bring me to the next question. So, do you think that there is a community now? Do you think there is now a fashion community in Africa, or is it that one is evolving? Do you see the evolution of a fashion community of fashion entrepreneurs across Africa?
I think
There was always a fashion community, but
Okay,
our fashion, but our when we talk about fashion community, our ideas and our inspiration still in the past came from Europe. We were still looking at the Kardashians. We were still looking at, you know,
right,
people from other continents, but not we did not celebrate our own celebrities. And then if we look at our own celebrities, they are also influenced by the Kardashians. So
you're
the
right,
community is always there. But what we have to try and bring back now, we have to go into the old suitcases of our grandmothers,
right,
find objects that's there that has been there for years that we don't even know about and we don't even know the meaning of it, and start working with that and teach the younger generation now how it was made, because those are skills that are lost and we
right,
have to bring back those skills. And we can only bring back those skills if we involve big designers like David Clark or um, the big designers from Africa to
right.
teach these people or to incorporate these artifacts that have been lost, whether it's in museums in London or in Germany, bring that back and teach the children now. This is the only way that we can build up our pride again and become a fashion community, an African fashion community.
mm, mm.
Dr.
I think
Erica?
it points, I think it points to the question that we kind of raised earlier is like, where is the center? And there's a shift
Right.
in the center. There's a shift in the center, perhaps. And I think even just individuals like Adebayo from Orange Culture,
Yes,
or
Right.
like Taylor Magugu or Rich Manisi, South African designers
Aisha,
that are
right.
absolutely Sarah Geoff, designers that are
Mania
African designers
Yancy, right. Across
that
Africa,
are
right.
yeah, that are that are bravely situating their practice and their inspiration and their values within African culture.
yes,
So their practice is also centered on the continent in terms of well-being of the continent, in terms of community of the continent, in terms of manufacture on the continent, in terms of consumers on the continent.
Sourcing
So
on the continent, right.
yeah, so I think that kind of fashion leadership from the continent, I think is
Right.
really fresh.
mhm,
And then I just wanted to add, I mean, you would know the work of Frederica as well from SIA.
Yes.
Frederica,
The Council for International Africa Fashion Education.
yes, yes,
Yes.
yeah, and so that again is another kind of, I mean, it's so obvious that this was necessary.
Right.
Once she presented that this was necessary, we were like, of course it's necessary. Why hasn't it happened before?
Yeah.
Um, and and so the timing of that kind of thing as well, if these kinds of um, communities around a set of practices. And I think education is a really rich place to have that kind of community grow in and across the continent, Southern African, West African, East African. But I think business should be following suit.
Right.
There obviously are practices, policies, laws, regulations that have prevented business across the continent,
Right.
and trade regulations and all of that. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done so that we can also recognize our own power as a continent, and not just in relation to others.
Yeah, but how do we change the mindset of the consumer that to buy Africa?
That's the role of education, I guess. So it's obvious that education is not just for those interested in the craft or the heart of designing. It means that education also has to do with sensitizing the consumers, Africans in general. We now have to help people be content with buying from the continent, buying
Mm-hmm.
from their country, buying locally, shopping locally, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
promoting local fashion. There was a time when African prints were not necessarily, recognized globally. Now, I think African prints and African designs are everywhere. So, it will still require Africa or
Yeah,
African educationists to do a lot of more work, get the audience educated, let them understand why they need to buy a garment made in Ethiopia that was hand woven and produced. It took about a week for the beading, and we need to be able to educate people. So I think that education plays a major role here. Like Dr. Erica said, CF, founded by uh, Frederica Brooksworth, is a major strategic decision for such an organization to be established at a time like this, and we need more of them because there's so much more there's so much they can cover. But if every fashion uh, industry professional is playing a role to enlighten and educate their immediate audience, I believe that that would go a long way in growing the community. As much as we have a community, are they knowledgeable? Do they know what the industry is about? A lot of people are just starting to understand sustainability, for example, right?
mm-hmm.
Not many Africans understood that wearing my grandma's clothes that was passed down to me is actually sustainable, making a sustainable fashion decision. So there's so much to be done.
Then I think as much as exhibitions play an important role in terms of that kind of communication and publications, but I think media is
Right.
an incredibly powerful, and I'm just thinking of that recent Johnny Walker film, Ones Who Keep Walking. I don't know if you've seen that film.
Right.
Ones Who
Yes.
Keep Walking. It's an incredible affirmation of contemporary and
African. Yeah.
exciting African creatives that are not even way ahead. They're here. They're right here. But incredible work. So platforms like Industry Africa, or
Right.
the media kind of. There's a South African sustainable platform called Twig. The media plays such an important media branding, advertising plays such an
Yeah.
important role in, as you say, Cynthia,
Promoting. Right.
convincing a different kind of desirability.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
influencing consumers'
Sorry,
decisions.
what
Very
was
true.
that that you mentioned? Once you see walking, or I did not get that.
Johnny Walker.
Johnny Walker. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay. So would you say collaboration has a major role to play too? Because now we're seeing, now you said, pointed out that the media is strong in helping re-inform the audience, right? And re-inform consumers. How about collaboration? Cynthia did say that there's a huge, even Erica, you did mention that there's a huge problem with in intertrade intertrade policies across Africa. Now,
Yeah.
how can collaboration break such barriers? Right. So, how can a jewelry designer from Namibia collaborate with a fashion designer from Gambia or Senegal? How can they work together? And do you think that collaboration will will build a bridge across African countries, such that I can be putting on a jewelry made by Margot Wong from Burundi, and my shirt
Mhm.
is an Egyptian designer. And how can we do that? How do you think collaboration can promote that?
No, that is doable, but the problem with us, it's to it's the marketing problem, and how do I send my jewelry to you, for
The
instance,
logistics,
because
right?
logistically DHL in Africa is so expensive. I don't know why.
Extremely, right?
So
Okay,
that is one of our biggest problems. We do get a lot of materials from West Africa, but then the people buy it in bulk here. And I buy material from South Africa because that is closer to home. But for me to buy cotton from Egypt or from Ethiopia, for instance, will cost me a lot of money. So
right,
these are the things that, how do we solve that problem?
right. Okay. Erica, do you want to have a go at this? How do you think collaboration can solve the problem? So for us, for example, we are launching a platform called Agogo Africa shortly. And
Mhm.
on that platform, it's going to be a directory where you have suppliers, you have manufacturers across Africa. You can order for goods, from different countries, regardless of where you're located, within Africa or outside Africa. And truly, logistics seems to be the most strategic thing that platform is going to be preferring solution to, like you said, Cynthia. And we do look
Mhm.
forward to launching it and hoping that designers and brands across Africa would jump on board and find it as effective as possible. However, I still want Erica to share with us what she thinks about collaboration. I really want to hear, Erica. What do you think about
Mhm.
collaboration?
Collaboration is everything.
Right,
So, I think the film that I reference is a collaborative project, but I think collaboration is about dialogue. So it starts with
right,
dialogue. And I think dialogue is such an incredibly powerful starting point. And then I think the question that the challenge that is being faced is that up until now, scale, the scale of intra-African movement of things across borders has
Mhm.
been limited to the informal. So there's a lot of stuff that happen, that trade and movement of stuff happens informally on the back of buses and suitcases and stuff like that.
right.
And then
Yes,
the kind of legal logistical that is kind of so expensive that it
right.
is is inhibitive. So
Mhm.
I think this question of scale needs to be needs to be supported by governments, by communities, I suppose. If there's
And
enough interest
organizations, right.
and
Yeah.
organisation, if there's
And
enough
even big
interest in this kind
big
of,
businesses like DHL, right? They have a major stake if they can be a huge part of preferring solution to you know this problem, like, right? If they can find themselves offering, you know, services at very, very friendly rates, I believe that Africans will easily jump on board to work with them.
Mhm.
Mm, mm, mm. Yep.
So, okay, so I'd like to know, within your countries or your regions, which, okay, so Erica and Cynthia are both from Southern Africa, so that leaves me in West Africa. How has collaboration been amongst, you know, the countries in your region? So, do you
With
find,
us, we collaborate a lot with South Africa. It's like because we were part of South Africa, so that is our
right,
second home. That is, but with I hardly collaborate with Zambia or Zimbabwe for that matter.
why?
I just I really I don't know why, but this is the truth. This is what's happening. It's we just we don't I don't know we what I don't see what can I buy from them quality wise because
Right,
I bought some of their fabrics, but then if I look at their fabrics, it's not the same quality like the ones that I will get from Ghana or Nigeria, for instance. So,
right,
and when it comes to jewelry, because of the ethnic groups that's in Zimbabwe, it's those groups are also in South Africa. So I would rather buy from South Africa, and I know
right,
transportation of goods from South Africa will be easier for me than to get it from
right.
Zimbabwe, for instance.
So,
And
quality.
Mozambique and Tanzania is too far for me.
Right. So distance, logistics, quality, and design aesthetics are the limiting factors, right? From collaborating with
Mhm.
some of these countries. Okay. Dr. Erica,
Yeah.
do you see collaborations with from South Africans with Mozambique, Tanzania, Zimbabwe? Do you see collaborations happening often?
Yeah, the kind of work that I'm very much involved in is collaborative. So I have worked with key sort of partners in Mozambique, in Botswana, in Zimbabwe, um, in Sudan. I've kind of tried to have a relationship with a community in Sudan. But these are academic and
Right.
idea and
Mhm.
creative
Yeah.
Lectural.
exchanges rather than physical objects moving between places. So these are
Yes.
Right.
these are kind of more abstract creative projects that result in prints or in film work. We've been involved
Right.
in a performative film
Mhm.
piece, in panel discussions, so they kind of live in the digital. So I think the
Space.
Yeah.
Right.
combination between digital and and collaboration is a very good combination.
Right. So that's how we could possibly bridge the gap for physical goods, create
Mhm.
good, efficient digital solutions is what I hear now. If it's been easy to work with Sudanese, to work with people from Mozambique on intellectual projects and research and probably some paper what you call them publications, right? And it's been a
Yes.
success with the aid of the of digital tools. Then it also means that the future of goods and service business, service transactions with other African countries could also be as a result of digital solution.
Yeah.
And the next question will be, when will this solution come to be, right? And who is going to prefer this solution? The purpose of this conversation is beyond today. Now, we do look forward to Africans beyond today, tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now, coming to refer to this conversation, because in this conversation, we've been able to pinpoint the challenges, we've been able to pinpoint the limitations and possible solutions, right, to some of the major problems we're having in Africa. So, in to round up the question on collaboration, do we have, would, in a sentence, do we have an healthy collaborative system in Africa? In a summative way, if you were to put it in a sentence, what would you say? Because now we know where the strength is. As much as Africa is yet to be grounded intellectually when it comes to fashion, when it comes to publications and exhibitions, it seems that we're doing well in that regard using digital solutions, right? Meanwhile, the aspect that has been in existence for years and years, we're still yet to fine tune that, right? Due to a lot of logistics and quality and, a lot of reasons. So, in a word or in a sentence, do we have a collaborative community? Do you think it's efficient? And why do you think it's not? How would you, in a sentence, tell us what you think? Is it efficient? Is it not efficient, and why? Dr. Erica, do you
I
want
would
to have a
say, I would say, yeah, I would say that a collaborative community is a future possibility.
It's a future possibility.
A future possibility. And where we are currently as a continent, I think there's a shift in kind of aspiration for the
Right.
continent. So the collaborative community is a future possibility, but it's also a future. It's aspirational, and I think that that would be the change. That it is aspirational.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cynthia?
No, I agree on that one, because at the moment I can't even think how, with everything that's because if I look at the designers, each one is just struggling to get their bread on the table every day. So I don't know how quick this can happen. Well, unless if we accept that COVID is with us now, and we have to carry on working, even with COVID in our midst, because there are so many things in our way to do the productions that we want to do. For instance, I was supposed to go on a film now, and it was stopped again due to COVID. So I really I cannot forecast what will happen in the next 6 months, for instance. It's difficult
Okay.
for me.
Okay. So this will bring me to the next part of the conversation, which is forecasting, right? And as much as, we've discussed so much on education, community, and collaboration, what do you think can happen in 2022 in these areas, in context of what we've spoken? Dr. Erica says that uh, collaborative community is a future possibility, right? So, how can that happen in 2022? You say we're presently still at the aspirational phase. Now, what should happen in that phase? What do you expect to see in 2022? Do you expect to see more sensitization going on? Do you expect to see a need for people to talk more on collaborations? Do you expect designers to look out for, what do you expect to see this year in regards to education? Dr. Eka, do you expect to see more publications? Cynthia, do you expect to have a dialogue? Do you think the industry can have a dialogue with top logistic organizations like DHL? What do you expect to see?
Yeah, that's a good one. The last one about DHL, this is something that we can look forward to. And
Right.
then, you know, buy, buying fabric from Africa, not from Asia.
So
For
you do,
instance,
you okay,
rather on the continent. And
okay,
then fashion trends should be. We should actually lead the fashion trend for the continent, and not take our fashion trends from the house of uh, Dior, or those other European designers,
okay.
because we don't even forecast fashion anymore. That fashion for 2022 will be like this. No, we still look at Europe for the fashion forecast,
Right.
and those are the mindsets, and that can only be taught in institutes in any case. And
Right.
branding for instance, is also very important.
Okay. I take that down. I take that down. Dr. Erika, what do you look forward to seeing in the African fashion industry 2022? Cynthia has made
20,
mention of Cynthia has made
mm,
mention of a dialogue with top logistics organization. She's mentioned sourcing locally and manufacturing locally. So we need a platform where this can happen, right? And she's also made mention of forecasting, right? Africans drawing inspiration from Africa, right? Okay, so what do you see happening in 2022?
mm. I would say that I think we need to look at 2022 within a broader kind of spectrum of 2 to 5 years. So a year
Okay,
is an incredibly short space of time, and
just
I think the pandemic is still very much with us.
right.
So the impacts, the kind of slow and even brutal and violent impact of the pandemic on so many people's lives will
And
continue
businesses,
to kind of
right,
have a very, very big impact. So I think what is really necessary is support, and I think support for the fashion industry from um, either within the fashion industry, the bigger players within the fashion industry, whether those are big international brands or houses, or but funding support, institutional support, logistical support, government support, municipal support, community support, support on so many levels. I think support is perhaps the word that I would hope for in 2022, because I think it is still going to be a difficult year. Support for publications, support for exhibitions, support for grants for research, support for
Mhm.
so I think support is an incredibly important wish, and that support would allow for a transition from 2022 into 2023, 2024. I think we need to look you know so that in the long term we can start to forecast, in the long term we can start to plan, and we can start to strengthen, and we can start to grow. So support is
right,
about planting those seeds. um,
right.
and then the second
Yeah, but
word, I
that,
think the
mhm.
second word, I'll come back to you, Cynthia, but the second word is just reclamation. I think reclamation,
Yes,
reclaiming,
Reclamation,
is,
yeah.
we
reclaiming,
spoke about rewriting, but I think, yeah, underpinning a lot of this is the need to reclaim small stories,
What you said.
reclaim
okay,
spaces, reclaim practices, reclaim
Mhm.
values, reclaim networks. Yeah, these have been destroyed in the sort of long colonial past, but also just in the current kind of COVID era. So supporting reclamation. So Cynthia, yeah, I'm happy to.
No, no, uh, you are right. It's just that when it comes to um, government don't seem to support the arts, for instance, at the moment. It Clothing is something very small because people don't think about clothes at the moment. It's about school fees, and it's how will I survive? I've lost my job and things like that. And if you look at big companies like Truworths for them in South Africa, some of them had to close down. How are they going? They are big companies. They are struggling to build their economy
right,
again? So
right.
yeah, and they are just surviving, and so designers with their designer clothes are actually, we are hit very hard at the moment, and I don't know how long will it take us to go back to where we were before, because government will not support us.
So what you're saying is that the government at the moment focused on providing reliefs for people to
Yes.
just go buy their daily needs, food, water, shelter, healthcare
Mm.
services, which is like a major, right, in almost any country right now, and their attention is not necessarily on glamour, which is the fashion industry, right?
Yes.
So, okay, so that's your concern. And how do we
Mhm.
cross that hurdle? Well, I think Erica helped in answering that by saying that she doesn't see this next phase of African fashion industry as a 1 year project. She's looking at it in five
Yes.
years, meaning that, for now it's slow, and
Mm-hmm.
I think most we can do, really, like she said, is to support and to reclaim. And the digital
Yeah.
space seemed to be the best place to do this at the moment,
Yeah.
with all the strict restrictions and hindrances that have been existing before the COVID
Mm-hmm.
19 pandemic. And, the
Right.
offshoots of the pandemic also are limiting factors, right? So, truly reclaiming and supporting, having
Mm-hmm.
conversations like this,
Yeah.
enlightening education is a major tool right now, because
Yeah.
education is propelled much more and is more efficient with the digital space. So I think that we can explore that option, you know, and get the word out there much more, and, help intellectuals who are in the fashion industry to see that they can actually explore writing, doing research locally, coming up with publications. People can focus on decolonizing their curriculums, and,
Yeah.
educating their immediate audience and the likes. Okay, so I think that truly that could be the what we should look out for in 2022. Might not necessarily be
Mm-hmm.
so tangible, from what we have all spoken on. We might not be able to hold it, physically. It might not be tangible, but then, when there's a repetitive conversation ongoing, it shows that the audience are unlearning and relearning. So I think that 2022 will probably be about that. While people are trying to get a hold of their lives and staying safe, it might be about information that we put out there. So we have a question from one of the audience, and I'd like to share on the screen. That's from Adeleye. It says, how do you think e-commerce solutions can help solve these difficulties?
Hmm.
I wouldn't be able to answer that because
Okay.
my experience in e-commerce is not very good. So, but I perhaps Cynthia, you would like to share on that?
No, no, no. I'm
Hmm.
no,
Okay.
because
So
We've also
let me
got to
let
do
me.
our learning. We've also got to do our
new.
learning.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I can say to
What do
this
you
question
think?
will
What do
be,
you think?
so what I think is that the e-commerce is actually a powerful tool. So, for example, Dr. Erica, you've talked about publications and how people can, write their books and put it out there. And, if these contents are available digitally and people can purchase them online, the e-commerce sort of has its power in that regard. Do you agree? Right. So I can be in Nigeria, I can buy a publication, or, have access to research done by someone in Uganda or someone in Mozambique or someone in South Africa, right at the comfort of my home, right? And curriculums can evolve. People can have new contents, new fashion education content, right? That people can have access to through e-commerce solutions. Okay, and I also believe that one of the problems that Cynthia mentioned is about sourcing. Yes, the logistics might still be easy bitty, but I believe that if the e-commerce platforms like Agogo Africa, which I look forward to sharing with you once it is launched, if e-commerce
Mm-hmm.
platforms like that can prefer solutions to how people can source fabrics in bulk. Imagine if you can you
Mm-hmm.
can you can source fabrics from anywhere in Africa, Cynthia. That would be awesome, right? So from the comfort of your home, you have a directory of manufacturers from Burkina Faso, Ghana, Senegal, Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia, Uganda, and you're like, oh, this new collection, I would like to get the fabrics from this country. And right there on your phone, on your laptop, you can make those orders and you can expect them the comfort of your home. So yes, it's not fully sophisticated, right? But like we said, 2022 is not here to keep the conversation going. So I think that we still have a lot of try and error to expect in preferring the solution to many of these problems. But I think that e-commerce solution will definitely help in solving some of these difficulties. In the long run, e-commerce is pretty much digital solutions. So we hope, Adeleye, we hope we're able to answer that question properly. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
we're coming to the end of the session, and this will bring me to the last question, which is, what do you hope to contribute to the industry this year? What should we look forward to from you? Cynthia, do you hope to organize exhibitions? Are you open to collaborative projects, exhibitive projects? Dr. Erica, what do you have in the works that you'd like to share with the audience? And, probably people will have questions that we can send to you. People would like to, know how to join the Research Institute. What do you have going on in 2022? What should we
Well,
look forward to from you?
for us now at the moment in Namibia, we are starting a fashion museum. And like I
Okay.
told you in the past, I worked with our artifacts in Berlin in the museum there, and some of those objects are coming back home. So we will work on that, and then those
Fantastic.
skills will be will be
I said
transferred to
fantastic.
students. And
Okay.
then end of last year, I worked on a movie that was based on the genocide, and a lot of the artifacts that we saw in the museum, we reproduced it for this movie. And then now there's another movie coming up, which will include 3 countries in Africa. Well,
Okay.
I'll be working on those, and I will do the costumes on those, and hopefully I will bring some of my students aboard to come and work on the movies, because one of these days we all have to retire, so it's a learning process for them.
Okay.
That's
Yes,
what's
it is.
happening this
Okay, so I have a question for you, Cynthia, but I'll come back to the question shortly. Dr. Erica?
Mm. Thank you so much, Cynthia. That's so exciting. Exhibitions and films and mentorships and training and spreading the kind of knowledge around. So I think really exciting. As far as AFRA is concerned, we're also looking to expand our website. So obviously we need work on the digital realm. We're looking to expand some possibilities around publication. So sort of watch the space. We're working on some publication ideas. Internationally, there's a couple of really exciting conversations that we're having with institutions in London, in New York, in dialogue also with Frederica and the Council for International African Fashion Education. And then we've been running a course, an online course on African fashion, kind of questioning the kind of stereotype and the sort of limitations. So how to think beyond the limitations of a stereotype with singular African
Mhm.
fashion narrative. So quite an exciting course. We've run the course online for 2 years now, so we'll probably run it again this year. So we'll sort of
Okay.
advertise on our social media when we
Okay.
run the course again. And then obviously sort of expanding sort of student mentorships, internships. We've got a couple of PhD supervisions, so expanding kind of knowledge possibilities through AFRI. So yeah, mentorships, internships, exchanges. Those are the kinds of work that we're doing. And again, almost all of this happens from my sort of
Computer,
home
right?
office, from
It's a
my
digital
computer, from
space.
my home office, so
Fantastic.
it really is, it's about expanding the network to have conversations, and I'm really interested in continuing conversations, not just in Southern Africa, but in the whole of Africa, West Africa, East
Africa.
Africa, North
Fantastic. Okay, so Dr. Cynthia, I call you doctor already. So my question would be, are you hope when you are, filming, you mentioned that you have 3 countries. You would you be open to taking on interns from those 3 countries, since you will
Yeah,
be
that's
in 3 countries? Okay, so that means
yeah.
that we could collaborate with you to get interns who want to learn costume design, right, to come on board in those 3 countries, right, or at
Essentially,
least 2 countries.
yeah, in the 3 countries we will have understudies from
Understudies, right?
understudies. Yeah, the people from a design school that has never been on a film, and then they will work together with us. So starting
Fantastic.
with a mold photo or things like that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. So we look forward to hearing about the film and promoting the film on our
I discuss
platform.
it now.
Um, more importantly, promote. No, we don't want to know about it now. We know it's an ongoing project. So,
Yeah.
but more importantly, the internship project. I think that it's important if you can make it a program that others can know about. You know, as it's ongoing, people in the continent need to know that this is happening, right? So that
Mhm.
others can learn from it, others can, you know, be motivated by it to probably do the same, in other African countries.
Yeah.
Dr. Erica, you said you have an online course. Uh, is there a period when you make the course open for people to apply?
Yeah. No,
Okay, so we
no,
would like to know about that when you're ready. We can help promote it on our platforms
Thank you so
and
much.
please.
get people
Yes.
to participate. And it'll be great if you think about a course on fashion research, African fashion research. A lot of people are
Mm-hmm.
probably interested in creative writing, right, intellectual
Yeah.
writing, but they don't know how to go about it. And if you're going to learn such, you probably have to leave Africa, go to Europe or go to America for such a course. But if Africa can come up with a content like that, I think that it'll be a great future for a lot of fashion intellectuals. Okay, so do you have any question for me? Let me put it that way. Cynthia, do you have any question? Dr. Erica, do you have any question?
No, I just said no. I wanted to know about the course now from Erica when
Okay, great,
yeah,
great.
and then uh, the other project that you are working on now.
Agogo
When
Africa,
was it
yeah,
coming on?
yes.
Yes, and
Okay, Dr. Erica, do you
will
want
you
to
also?
provide information to Cynthia?
Yeah.
Mm. Well, the course is a 7-week course, and we currently looking at possibly opening it up in February again, but it would be for April, May. So we just having to align a couple of diaries to be able to offer the course. It's a once a week 1 hour session of engagement for 7 weeks. So we will open it up in February and share with you the details. So absolutely, I'll share those details with you and on our digital platforms. And then I suppose the question that I'm sort of quite interested in with the African Fashion Business Summit is the kind of networking possibilities to strengthen ideas around education, community, and collaboration, and whether
Mhm.
this particular conversation leads to a report or to a something that allows for that networking to be strengthened.
Okay, so because this is the first of its kind, so this is the second session. We had the first session in December where we talked about the craftsmanship, the skill, the designs, and we are looking to expanding this project, how that it can indeed lead to an article, right? Write up research, and we're hoping to collaborate with as many professionals in Africa as possible. So as time goes on, we would reach out to all those that we would work with. All those that we have invited so far to speak are definitely some of the people we would be collaborating with. So yes, we do look forward to working with you on publications
Yeah.
and bigger panels, on a wider and larger audience. We do look forward to doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, secondly, Cynthia, you asked about the project we're working on. It will be launched
Yes.
very soon. You will get an email from us, and we look forward to having as many African entrepreneurs, fashion entrepreneurs in fabric, textile manufacturing, jewelry, clothing, all of those, even manufacturers, garments, constructors, technologists. We're hoping that we can reach out to as many people with your help, with the help of those that we're already in contact with. We already have people from Burundi, from Egypt, from Ghana, from Nigeria, from South
Mm-hmm.
Africa. There's a lot of work to do because we have to reach as many African countries as possible. We want the website to be holistic. We do not want a region to be lacking, right? We want every country to be featured. So yes,
Yeah,
once the website is ready to be published, we will communicate with you and via
that's
email,
great.
and we look forward to your feedback once it's ready. So that brings us to the end of this session. And thank you so much, Dr. Erica. It's been a very informative session. Cynthia, it's been wonderful having you as well. Uh, we hope that you would make yourself available for more conversations such as this, sometime again in the year.
Okay.
To our audience, thank you for watching this review. We hope that you've been able to take a lot of information away from it that would propel you to, rethink your business models, rethink your decisions in the African fashion industry. If you have questions that you are yet to share with us, you can send them to us via email, and we will share the email. Send it to me directly. We would find a way to get the responses from Dr. Erica and Cynthia accordingly. And we look forward to having you engage, also on all our social media platforms at Africa Fashion Business Summit on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. And thank you, everyone, for joining us, and have a lovely afternoon. Thank you so much, Dr. Erica.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, have a lovely afternoon. Bye.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you. I'll be right
That's
back.
everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Bye.